You are now entering Clearview, Illinois. The name of tonight's tale is HoneysuckleCherry. Beth's inside spilled outside while Mattie screamed in unbridled hysterical fear. The anonymous voice clinically spoke as if it were the voice of God. On a scale of 1 to 10, how might you rate the taste of Darcynthic wintergreen? Beth is fucking dead, you heartless fucks, said Mattie, attempting to flip Beth over and drag her from the pile of blood and bile she slid in. The voice repeated his question in the same apathetic tone devoid of reason. On a scale of 1 to 10, how might you rank the taste of Darcynthic wintergreen? Mattie cried, but the monotone voice persisted, unfazed by displays of human suffering. On a scale of 1 to 10, how might you rank the taste of Darcynthic wintergreen? Mattie stepped away from Beth's lifeless form. The voice continued to repeat itself, though she didn't engage it. She tried to pull on the handle of the door of this small, formless white room, but there were no signs of obvious relief. After several minutes of bombardment of the mundane focus group question, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate Darcynthic wintergreen? Mattie broke down from the corner she curled up in. 5, okay, fucking 5, she blurted. Thank you for your input, said the unfeeling voice. Please try our HoneysuckleCherry, the voice said impassively. A small compartment in the white wall opened up and there was a little shot glass of reddish-brown liquid. No, fuck that, the last one killed Beth. I'm not drinking it, fuck you, said Mattie with conviction. Please try our HoneysuckleCherry, the clinical voice repeated. Mattie's head balled up in the corner, fully prepared to weather the storm for as long as she needed to, because it didn't feel as if she were going to get out of this anytime soon. The voices droned on, ceaselessly. Please try our HoneysuckleCherry. Please try our HoneysuckleCherry. Please try our HoneysuckleCherry. Mattie's brain was on fire, and after a while, all her thoughts were of HoneysuckleCherry, while her own were left muted in the wake of the overbearing voice. Mattie was starting to think that risking death might be better than enduring the annoying droning in her head. She walked up to the reddish-brown liquid and inspected it thoroughly, as if she had some sort of way to analyze its contents with her naked eye. She drank the concoction, and it burned like whiskey. It wasn't unpleasant for what it was, but it was the aftertaste that made the biggest impression. Mattie fell over dead. The glass tumbled out of her hand. Soon after, 2 men covered in all white tossed Beth and Mattie in plastic bags. They began the daunting task of making a red room pristine white again. Mattie's unseen eyes passed through formless halls of white, gazing at the hypnotic patterns of fluorescent light, until their 2 bodies were slid into a dark metal drawer amongst a wall of metal lockers. Mattie suddenly gasped for air once the locker shut. She pawed frantically at the plastic she was encased in so that she could breathe. For 2 years of Mattie's life, she had trained to be a master yogi in India under legit yoga masters, and the final test to become a master was to be buried alive for 2 days. A master could slow their breathing and life functions down to nearly nothing, appearing to be dead. Unfortunately for Mattie, she never had the discipline to master the technique, but fortunately for her, she had just enough discipline to employ the technique for a few minutes. Mattie slowly pushed herself from the locker, cracking it just enough to get a hint as to if there were anyone else in the room. Mattie could see that, though there was some ambient light in the room she was in, the lights were off. She slid out of the slab and found herself in a morgue. There were metal tables with what she assumed were bodies on top of them. Mattie crept around the morgue using only the glow of the ambient light to guide her steps. She found a small light and inspected the charts on one of the bodies covered on a slab. If she was going to die here, at least she should know why. 1 minute she's just trying on clothes at the mall, the next she's being forced to do product testing for clear psychopaths. The cause of death listed on the chart was chemical-induced poisoning due to botulism. Though she didn't quite understand all the words she read, she knew that botulism had something to do with eating something that had been dead for too long. She wanted to gag, so she induced vomiting over a deep steel sink. Was that what she was drinking? Was that why Beth's stomach exploded? It didn't matter to her as much as escaping this place did, but a part of her still had to wonder why would they put that in a drink. What was the end goal of this move? Mattie found the door out and saw that it led down a sterile white hallway. There were heavily barricaded doors that had places for keypads on the side of it. Mattie knew she didn't have the skill to jailbreak into a computer system, and when she thought about it, she most likely wouldn't be able to avoid all the cameras that were undoubtedly set up all over the place. She felt that the best way to approach this would be to wait for whoever tended to the bodies and steal their card off of them, maybe find a lab coat. Mattie wasn't sure she had what it took to do such a thing, but what exactly was the alternative? Beg for mercy? It wasn't as if it did much good the first time she did it. She waited in the dark, contemplating everything she had ever seen from movies about hiding and stealth, knowing that none of it would work. She found a closet of lab coats, a very sharp bone saw, and a scalpel. She wasn't going out without a fight, if she couldn't pull off the stealthy solution. After what felt like a while, a little man in a white coat and earbuds entered the room, flipping on the lights carefree. He walked over to a slab drawer and peeked in. It was Beth. Mattie saw in her mind's eye her last moments before her stomach exploded and filled with rage. Mattie hid under a table in what she thought was an excellent spot, but the man in the lab coat noticed something and beelined for her. She couldn't tell if she was spotted or not. The man reached his hand out and Mattie chose herself over being captured again. She jabbed the scalpel in the man's stomach. He opened his mouth as if to speak, but Mattie quickly raked the bone saw over his throat. The lab tech died in a geyser of blood with surgical tools that he didn't have before in hand. Maybe he hadn't spotted her at all. Maybe he was just reaching for his implements. Mattie may never know. Mattie had to escape, and whether he was in on it or not was moot now. She didn't have time for morality and self-reflection. She took the keycard off of the lab tech and made her way to the hallway. Mattie walked as casually as she possibly could and audibly held her breath when she slid the keycard over the digital lock. She exhaled when the blinking light went from red to green. As she walked the clinical white halls, she noticed men in casual outfits leading other people into the same focus group rooms she was in earlier that day. She thought to help those poor souls, but technically she was still a prisoner herself. She turned her head with shame when she passed them, attempting to be as uninteresting as she possibly could. Mattie found her way to an elevator. She had to swipe her keycard to make the lift work at all. Mattie pushed the button for the top floor. When the doors opened, there was nothing clinical or sterile about this place. It looked like a museum crossed with the sensibilities of a theater. The walls were maroon and covered in different shades of maroon curtains, along with dim mood lights with bright spotlights highlighting antiques as esoteric as rusted train spikes to as grand as busts of distinguished people. Mattie crept down the hall to the big door on the end that had Victorian sensibilities due to the ornate lattice work all about the archway. Mattie fearlessly pushed the door, and when she did, she saw a darkened room adorned with oil paintings of people dressed in different era-appropriate garb from a variety of different times, all dramatically lit so that the room in itself was dim. There was a massively oversized desk inside with a chair that was big enough to seat a giant turned around facing a tinted window but clearly viewing outside. A deep voice spoke as if in the middle of a phone call.
And we should have a shippable product if we can stay on the proper timeline.
The male voice chuckled.
Yes, I know. Well, have to go slower, right? Right.
As the voice went on, Mattie held her blade close, taking stalking steps forward.
I do like the taste of HoneysuckleCherry. It should be very popular if we can get it to market.
Mattie quietly hopped on top of the very big desk with the grace of a hunting cat. In a voice that barely rose above a whisper, Mattie said, "Caleb Clearview sends his regards," before spinning the chair and raking her saw at the seated person. When the chair spun around, there was the visage of a man-like creature whose skin was more red than pink, taller than even the tallest man, and jagged and rough as one would think of a reptile to be. Its eyes were blacker than the blood that spilled from its neck. Though bleeding and injured, it stood. From the desk Mattie was still on, she moved quickly and thrusted a knee into the otherworldly thing's face. As Mattie's strike was to connect, the man-like thing caught her knee with one massive red hand.
Tell your boss I sell where I want to sell, and if he has a problem with it, he best come talk to me.
Mattie felt her body being twisted and flung through the massive glass window. Mattie sailed through the air, coming very close to meeting the pavement. But seconds before the impact fell, bat-like wings ripped from her back and through her stolen lab coat, carrying her away and off into the night.
You are now exiting Clearview, Illinois. I hope you enjoyed the trip.